travelers. Welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you've joined me. So while we're here, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all of what's going on with us. And make sure you follow us on social media at Trish's Timeless Travels on Instagram and Facebook, and Trish D. Smith on Twitter. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about know before you go, traveling on a cruise with someone with mobility issues. So if you guys have been watching the series, I went on the Carnival Sunrise with my grandmother on her first cruise. And this is the first time I've ever traveled with someone with mobility issues. I've had to assist other clients that have, with family members that had mobility issues, but this is the first time I've ever had to do it myself. So there was a lot of inside information that I did get to find out other than just contacting the cruise line and contacting the airlines, things like that. So let's jump right into it. I actually wrote it down so I wouldn't be all over the place this time. The airfare. So we started off with flying on Southwest going on the flight. So by the way, this is not a sponsored video. We are not sponsored. These are all my opinions and the opinions of the people that I was traveling with. So we started off flying to Fort Lauderdale on Southwest Airlines. We actually wanted a straight through flight, a nonstop flight, but we weren't able to make it work just because of my schedule. So we wound up having to have a layover, which worked out fine because in the layover, my sister actually lives in Dallas. We stopped in Dallas, we met up with her, and then we were able to fly to Fort Lauderdale together. Now, with Southwest, when we booked the flight, all we had to do was check a couple of boxes saying we were bringing a wheelchair with us and that we would need assistance at the airport. Everything was seamless. When we got to the airport in Kansas City, they actually let us park the car curbside, let my husband bring the car in. Security said, "Hey, are you with this lady with the wheelchair?" He said yes, and they said, "Okay, we're going to send out a notification to security, letting them know not to bother this car because you're handling somebody with a wheelchair." So that was fantastic customer service right there. That had nothing to do with Southwest. That was airport security. So we got to the line, got checked in, got our bags checked and everything. And what we are able to do, I don't know if you know about this, I've actually known about this for a while, you can get what is called a gate pass. So instead of a boarding pass that you would get to actually get on the plane, the person who's traveling with you that's assisting you can get a gate pass. So what that is, they still have to show their ID, they still have to actually go through TSA with you, whatever situation you're going through TSA, whether it be through the regular TSA or whether it be through TSA PreCheck, they have to get a gate pass, and that gate pass gives them access to go through all the way to the gate with you to make sure that you're okay. So we were able to get a gate pass when I took my grandmother before on her flight to out of town. She was going to be traveling by herself, so I had to carry her carry-on bags and all that stuff to the gate, so I was able to show them my passport, get a gate pass, take her to the gate. Well, this time I was actually traveling with her, but my husband was able to actually go all the way to TSA. He didn't get a gate pass this time, but he was able to go all the way with us to TSA to make sure we had everything covered. We just didn't have a lot of time for him to get the gate pass and be able to go through and all that stuff. So, but just so you know, you can do that. Once we got to the gate with with Southwest, the Southwest boarding attendant was able to actually tell everybody for special boarding, children, people with wheelchairs, things like that, to line up in a special line. And the people who needed assistance, she actually took the wheelchair from me, walked it all the way down the gangway to the actual plane, and got my grandmother up. Now, my grandmother can walk. She just needs the wheelchair for long distances. So she actually got the wheelchair all the way on, got my grandmother, and then they checked her wheelchair and then put us on the plane. Once we were on the plane and they knew we had a layover in Dallas, they actually tagged the wheelchair, checked it as a checked piece of luggage, and then they transferred it from the plane from Kansas City to the plane going to Fort Lauderdale. So when we debarked or got off the plane, I don't know what deplaned, there we go. So when we deplaned, they actually had a Southwest airline wheelchair waiting for us, and they took my grandmother to the next gate. Got her all situated at the next gate, and then they did the same thing. When it was time to board, they actually took the wheelchair from me, got her all the way to the plane, and then was ready to go. When we got to Fort Lauderdale, they got her wheelchair out of the checked luggage, brought it to the door, and then we were able to take it from there, take her from in the wheelchair that she brought with her off the plane, and then go to baggage claims, get our luggage. So everything was seamless. All we had to do was just check a couple of boxes when we actually bought the ticket. Um, Once we got to the cruise ship, embarkation, somehow, some way, well, I'll get to that in a later, but we actually got a spa cabin. We wanted to get a spa cabin so my grandmother would really enjoy and be able to relax on her first cruise. We knew that she could walk, so we didn't have to have a lot of the handicap situation. She can stand up and all that stuff. Do want to let you know that if you do have mobility issues and you're not able to stand up for long periods of time in the shower, or not able to really get in and out of the room without your wheelchair, you definitely want to let the cruise line know that you need a wheelchair accessible room. We were able to collapse her wheelchair, wheel it in, put it over in the corner, and she could walk in and out as needed. But if you have like a scooter, especially because those can't be left out in the hallway or anything like that, you have to make sure that you have a handicap accessible room so you can move it into where it needs to go. So when we got there, we actually were able. They were actually gave us someone to assist, and we actually went up a different gangway to get on the cruise than the regular gangway. They actually took us up a different way, which is much shorter, but a little bit steeper. So someone had to help push her up there. So it was. I'm so glad that Carnival Cruise Line's customer service was amazing when it came to that. The dining room. So we also, this is the part I said I'd get to that in a minute. We actually was in our special request that we needed a mobility assistance, but somehow that didn't get translated to the dining room. So when we arrived for our formal dining, there was actually we were seated on the level that went up, and you had to go upstairs to get to it. So I talked to the maitre d', who was fantastic. He was in the video. He actually welcomed my grandmother for her first cruise. I talked to the maitre d', and he said nobody but gave me this information. Let me see what I've got available. And he actually moved us to a table that was at ground level, so that we just had to wheel her to her chair instead of trying to go up the stairs. Now, again, my grandmother can walk, but it was just a situation of we didn't want to have to do everything with the wheelchair, moving it around, put it in somewhere else while we had to go up the stairs. It was just easier for us to wheel her right to her table, collapse the wheelchair, and put it behind the table. So kudos to the maitre d' for getting us a better table and making that seamless and easy for us. Tender ports. So this was a little bit of a situation, not a lot, it wasn't hard at all. We were able to get assistance getting on and off the ship at the port that had to be tendered, but we did have to wait for a specific boat to take us from the ship to the island at Princess Key. They actually had a ramp that went from the boat over to the ship, and someone had to assist us with getting our grandmother up that ramp and into the boat. And then once we got to Princess Key, they had to do it again. They had to actually put the ramp up and put her on it and bring her down the ramp for us. She's just too heavy in the wheelchair. Not she's heavy, the wheelchair is heavy, to push it up and down those heavy ramps. We actually did see another lady that we actually got to know pretty well on the ship that was driving a scooter, and she was able to just drive her scooter right up the ramp. But that was something that she also had to wait for that specific boat, because that was the only boat that had the wheelchair ramp. So we didn't rent a scooter or a wheelchair at the port. We actually rented our wheelchair here in Kansas City, because my grandmother really doesn't need the wheelchair, because in Kansas City we drive her wherever she needs to go, and she uses her cane. But we did need a wheelchair for her for this, because obviously cruise ships are huge and we were going to be going a lot of places and then going where we were at port. So we rented the wheelchair here and brought it with us. So the seamlessness of having our own wheelchair just worked out better. We haven't had the situation. Well, my sister had a long time ago rented a scooter at the port, and she said it worked out fine. It was seamless as well. But for us, having the wheelchair with us was easy. We did have a couple of issues that I'll talk about here in just a second. The elevators. People just didn't pay attention. That's just the honest to God truth. People just weren't paying attention. We pushed the up or down elevator, and we'd be standing in the center so that whichever one opened up, we would go right to it. Well, the elevator sometimes would close before we would get to it if we weren't paying attention. So one of us had to be on alert and like, okay, the elevator opens, you go catch it, and then I'll wheel her to the wheelchair, wheel her to the elevator. Well, the other thing that would happen is if we were in a crowd of people and we would be there already waiting for an elevator, a crowd of people would show up, the elevator would open, and they would all rush to the elevator and get in. That happened on day one. After day two, that didn't happen anymore. People kind of, my grandmother, I'm obviously social. I'm a really friendly person. My grandmother was, brand new. So people saw her and really took to, oh, okay, she's in a wheelchair. We need to be a little bit more courteous about letting them get on the elevator first. So after day one, we didn't have that issue. People began to recognize, oh, the people that are in the scooters, the people who are in the wheelchair, we need to be a little bit more courteous with them. So I appreciate everyone on the cruise that actually did pay attention and saw we were there waiting. Don't just run in the elevator and take it, and with us trying to turn the wheelchair around and get her in the elevator. Because one of the things that we made sure that we did was we would always back the wheelchair in so that she wasn't staring at the wall. So when the elevator opened, it was easy to just take her out. Some people, when the elevator would open and they would see us, it would just be the three of us in the elevator, and they'd be like, oh, we'll take the next one. And we're like, no, come in. It's plenty of room on both sides. Come in. So some people were hypersensitive of a wheelchair being in there when we had to just encourage them, no, please come in. There's room. Come in the elevator. Debarkation. So one of the things that we had a situation with debarkation, with Carnival, you have the option to check your bags overnight and have them take your bags down, and then when they call your floor, you go down and then you're able to leave. Well, the problem was that we had kind of an early flight, and we weren't guaranteed what time our suitcases would be downstairs. They could be anywhere from 9:30 to 10 o'clock, and we needed to be gone fairly early. Because we had a fairly early flight. So, unfortunately for us, that meant that we had to lug all of our suitcases down at one time to get off the ship. So what my sister and I did was kind of tag teamed it. One of us took my grandmother down, put her in the place where we needed to get off the ship, and then came back, got the other luggage, and then just kind of wheeled our way out. Well, at that point, because we're downstairs debarking, someone from Carnival staff actually helped us with the wheelchair to go down the ramp, to go down the gangway. So my sister and I were able to just kind of consolidate all of our luggage together. It was still hard, but we were able to do that once someone was assisting us with the wheelchair. So just a thought, if you have someone with mobility issues, that if you can get a later flight and check your luggage where you don't have to carry all of it and be responsible for pushing a wheelchair or whatever, you just may want to give that a thought. We knew that going in, but I just needed to get home fairly early, so we had an early flight. So that is about it. If you guys have any questions, any thoughts, any comments that you want to leave, please leave them below in the comments. I will answer them as quickly as I can. I know sometimes you guys like to actually come to my Facebook inbox and ask questions after you've seen the video. Please feel free to leave your comments here. I'm kind of more likely to answer these than I am the Facebook inbox. Well, not really. I answer them all. But we prefer if you come here so that we know what video you're asking the question for. So again, we'd love it if you'd go ahead and hit that notification bell, subscribe to us, and follow us on social media. Again, it's at Trish's Timeless Travels with Instagram and Facebook, as well as Trish D. Smith on Twitter. Thanks, and I hope you guys travels are timeless.